Hello and welcome. It's Bernadette Schwerdt here, founder of Copy School. How are you all? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. I'm going to share with you a technique today about swipe files and specifically how to create a copywriting swipe file. Now, if I knew this when I started my copywriting career, I think I would have gone further, faster, and more easily because I didn't know this. And it's just such an easy thing to do, and it literally will save you hours and hours of writing time. So let me take you through all the insides and outsides of copywriting swipe files. So first up, here's what you're going to learn today. You're going to learn how to create a swipe file. And why do that? Well, you can get your copy pre-approved before you've even started. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And number two, you're going to cut your writing time in half. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Know what you need to write before you start writing. So this is all about the planning. Often what happens with copywriters, particularly novice copywriters, they jump right into the writing too quickly. And then they get stuck and they spend a lot of time going back and forth, researching and writing and then swapping between those two tasks. And it just adds more time onto the process. Whereas if you just step back a bit into the research, into the planning, into the brief, you're going to get where you need to go a lot quicker. So firstly, what is a swipe file? Now, I know most people will probably understand, but for those who don't, this is for absolute novices and beginners. I'm going to share with you what it is. And in essence, it's a collection of advertisements or content pieces used to gain inspiration for future work. And these can be physical or digital collections. And as this person has said here, I love collecting all the advertisements I get in the mail in my swipe file. I can use them for inspiration later. Now, I know we don't get a lot of things in our mailbox anymore, but it's a lovely place to start because it just comes at you and you can start to actually assess what's working for you or not. And of course, there's all the other online pieces that you can explore. But I like getting snail mail. I actually think it's an underutilized medium because we rarely get it. And look, I know people don't have addresses anymore. They just don't even have houses that they stay in for much longer than a couple of years, particularly when you're younger. So I know addresses are difficult, but I still think there's merit in sending stuff depending on the audience and the particular service that you are promoting, because we get so little of it. When people do get it, they pay attention. The essence of a swipe file is that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when you can show clients something, it basically cuts your briefing time in half and it helps them understand what you are seeking to do, and you can get from them what they're looking to create. In essence, start collecting. There's no delay. You can start collecting today. Anything that comes through the mail in your home, anything on your emails, etc., can start to be collected. And I'll share with you at the end a little system for collecting that might help you as well. So again, the essence of why start from scratch writing a piece of copy when you can leverage the work others have already done. So if you think about a letter from a bank or in a health insurance company, you think about how much work has already gone into that particular letter. And you as copywriters now know how much work does go into these things. And what we see might be just 200 words, but there's been hours and days and weeks of preparation for those couple hundred words. So what that summary in that letter shows you is what they perceive to be important. It's what they perceive to be the right tone for that particular audience. So a lot of thought's already gone into it. Why not leverage that sweat and effort and then use that in your next piece? Because you don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. They've done all the work for you. And also, this is not an invitation to copy, okay, like to copy and paste. The message is to be inspired by what, and to get a feel for what your client wants. I love this quote from Steve Jobs: people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And often clients really don't know what they want. They won't reveal that they don't know because it makes them look unprofessional and unprepared. But often they don't. And until you show them something, and often they'll say, no, that's not what I want. And that's good, right? What they don't want is as important as what they do want. So sometimes by showing them a whole bunch of things they can go, no, it helps you work out, well, we're getting closer to yes. This is the process of elimination, reducing the risk down in terms of all the options that are available to them and coming up with just a few that really meet their needs. Just as an example, I talked earlier about banks, government departments, insurance companies. We get all these letters And I guarantee you probably don't pay much attention to them because they're just telling you something you don't want to know, that your premiums have increased, that you're overdrawn at the bank, or you need to provide some identification to get your passport done, or whatever that message might be. So we look at it from a consumer's point of view. And what I'm encouraging you to do is actually look at it from a copywriter's point of view. And think about the letter. You think, okay, what is the purpose of the letter? What is the tone that they've used? How many words have they used? What does it look like on the page in terms of the headline, in terms of the spacing, in terms of the layout of the content? Like you can just see here some of the paragraph blocks, and you can see it's like the middle one with the government there. It's well laid out, but it's been thought through. Some are indented, some aren't. There's a few headlines, there's bullet points. All of that has been considered. Again, when you get things for your personal life, don't just file it in the waste paper bin and think, oh, thank you, Commonwealth Bank. Actually start to look at it critically. Because again, these kinds of letters, the essence of copywriters work, particularly with agencies, but it will save you a whole bunch of time. And you can show a client this and say, is this the look of something that you like? Is this the length that you want? Is this the right tone that you've created? So just by asking the client to look at these things, they can go yes, no, yes. Things like flyers and brochures and things like that. Honestly, a picture tells 1,000 words. Rather than getting the client to think about all the options around brochures, just show them some. Google Images is your best friend here. Just type in brochure images or flyer images, and you can see all the various options and layouts and folds and things like that, and you can start to get a sense of what they might like. Things like emails. Another, if you're doing an email campaign, there are so many formats that you can use. There's so many ways in which an email can be written and produced that just by showing them a couple of examples, like you can just see here, one's from Apple. It's very text driven. There's a few images there if you downloaded them, but it's very sort of light on copy, as is the second one from Temple & Webster, which is really homeware. So again, it's going to be fashion and image based. But that's very different to a long copy email from a direct marketer. Things like Facebook and Instagram, start collecting those so that when you do write those ads for yourself or for your client, you can show them and say, look, is this along the lines of what you're looking for? Same with blogs and website. Any piece of copy can become the foundation of your swipe file. Now, what are some of the benefits of a swipe file? Well, specifically, it reduces your work and effort. And this absolutely, literally. So I'm doing a quick quiz. I don't expect you to play along, but just in theory, how many words do you think are in this following flyer? So when I do this in my workshops, I just show it to the group, and inevitably it comes back with there's 200 words in that. In this one, there's only 91 words. But in general, most people overestimate how many words are actually used in a flyer, and indeed how many words are needed. So if you can establish your word count first, you can reduce your work rate, because why write 500 words when you only need 100? And so, for example, if you showed that flyer to a client and said, is this along the lines that you want? And they go, yes, you count the words and you go, brilliant, I need 100 words. That instantly cuts down a whole bunch of effort for you, because what you can then do is you go and copy and paste 100 words, you put it into a Word document, you keep that there as a visual reference, you go, okay, that's all I need. So when you start finding yourself writing page after page, you go, you know what, I don't need this much. I need this much. So again, just visually, it helps you stay clear about the goal without overworking it. Because one of the things I know that new copywriters do, and I certainly still do to some degree, is over-research. We spend way too much time on coming up with raw material when we don't really need to come up with that much. The second benefit is that you can get pre-approval before you start. Because one of the things with copywriting is you want to read your client's mind about what they're looking for, what they're expecting before you start, so that when you do present it to them, you've already ahead of the game because they've already told you what they want. My mistake when I started out was I didn't do this. And I was just trying to verbally try and get from them what they're looking for through the creative brief. Whereas if I just showed them a couple of images, it would have saved so much time. So in essence, show the client options to get a feel for what they want and don't want. And often they don't know what they want until they see it, which is what Steve Jobs said. This will help you shape the creative brief. So this is in the early phases of the creative brief compilation. And here's another thing. Clients can't differentiate between text and layout. So help them make the distinction. So what I mean by that is if you were to show a client a flyer like I just did, they wouldn't even know that there's an image component and a text component. They just see it as an entirety. Now, as copywriters, we need to pull those things apart. There's a few elements in there. There's images, there's logos, there's color, there's graphics, there's text, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And often the client can get a little bit like wound up in, oh, I like the look of that, without even realizing what those elements are. So our job is to help them identify those elements. So take, for example, again, flyers. A number of questions you can ask about a client that will help you write more clearly is, firstly, what is the ratio of graphics to text that you're looking for? So if you look at the pink flyer there, it's image heavy. And then you look at the other flyer, it's more text heavy. And you can say to a client, which one is leaning towards? And they go, oh no, definitely image heavy, right? So then you've got, good, I understand that this is not going to be a heavy text piece. The second thing is color scheme. Is it bold or muted? And you might be thinking right now, what's that got to do with me? I'm a copywriter. When you do maybe go to a graphic designer, then you can brief them correctly. But also, if you're going to use Canva and things like that to create your own graphics, which I recommend that you do, when even just as an interim measure, like a little rough version, so that when they do approve it and go to the proper graphic designer, even just these kinds of little tweaks can help the client get closer to approval. For example, if they love that bold, that pink, and then you present them with something kind of muted and autumnal or something, they go, oh, it's not quite what I was looking for. And it's got nothing to do with the text. They just can't separate the text from the design. If you get these things right, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Things like pages and length and folding, again, they might not seem overly relevant to you, but they super are, because the number of pages tells you how much copy you're going to write. In your head, a flyer might be just an one A4 page. They may have an 8-page fold out kind of thing. So you don't know what people mean when they say flyer or brochure. So just getting that understood is really important. Things like the length, like how much copy do you want on each page? So again, just showing them, saying, is this about what you're looking for? Is it that? Again, you get an answer, it reduces your choices. Folding is important as well, because you need to know, this is going to go in an envelope, therefore it needs to be folded to DL, or it might be to C5, or it might be just delivered in a letterbox. So the way it's folded determines how it gets written, because it needs to follow a certain rhythm if it's going to be a DL brochure versus just one A4. And again, might seem a bit tenuous because the designer will work that out. But if you know in advance how it's going to be sent and seen or displayed on a shelf at a doctor's surgery, then your writing is going to be approved more quickly. And of course, tone of voice and feel. What's the feel about the professionalism? Is it quirky? Is it doctorly? Is it motherly? Is it bogan? Is it tradie? What is the tone? And by giving them a couple of options, they can go, that's it. Again, that tone is critical, because one of the things that goes wrong in a piece of copy is the tone. It's not identified at the beginning. So you write in a voice that you think is correct, and you give it back to the client. They don't like it. You can't work out why. All the features and benefits have been covered. The target audience has been identified, but it's the voice that has not been discussed. And that completely changes the texture of everything. So that would be one question you need to ask, is tone of voice. And by showing them something that's quite disparate, A and B, you can go, oh, that's what you want. Great. Now I know how to proceed. Take emails as a swipe file. If you were to go into your email clutter file, for example, and click on from, it can give you all the emails from that particular sender. And I love doing this because you start to see their campaign objectives and their campaign execution. So take Temple & Webster right here. Now, I don't expect you to see all the detail here, but you can see that all the headlines or the subject lines are there in a row, and you can see the date in which they're sent as well. And that in itself is interesting, because you go, oh, wow, they send it every 3 days. Interesting. They send it at this particular time. Interesting. So you can learn from these things. But if you look at the headline formulas that they use, you can see, they're using these formulas. You can say that to the client, well, how frequently do you want to go? What length do you want? Because this is what these kinds of clients do. And these are the kind of formulas that they use for their subject lines. Do you want to follow that kind of thing, or do you want to have a different take? So just by doing the summary of what a client does, it gives you a very good overview of what they're trying to achieve. The last thing to think about is the format, HTML versus text. Again, clients may not even understand the difference between this, but if you can show clients what full text looks like and then a HTML version, then they go, oh no, I definitely want text, right? So just that alone will help you create the right piece because you don't need images. Because if they're expecting images and you don't show them, you're going to get pushback and you don't quite know why, and it could have been avoided from the get-go. A lovely addition to the swipe file is the Meta Ad Library. So the Facebook or Meta Ad Library, officially known as Meta Ad Library, is a powerful and free tool that Meta, formerly Facebook, provides. It allows users to search and view active and past ads from any advertiser. So this is a little bit of a gold mine. So you just go into the library and you can see all the ads for various companies and you can see what kind of performances they've had as well. So it's a really nice swipe file that you can use for free if you're going to do Facebook advertising. And you don't even have to go and get your own swipe files. You can actually use existing swipe files that will be compiled for you before you've even started. So don't do all the legwork. Let these people do it for you. And you just type in existing swipe files or swipe files for sales pages or swipe files for landing pages, whatever it might be. And you can get a whole bunch delivered to you instantly. And in terms of where to file them, and there's been a couple of questions coming through for that, you can use Evernote, you can use Pinterest, you can just even create Word folders for yourself. And each one of those folders could be either a medium like email swipe files or Facebook swipe files or blog or headline swipe files, or you could use more of a vertical industry title, for example, medical swipe files, fitness industry swipe files, or it could be fashion swipe files, so you can use it by industry. And that again, just keep adding to that as you go. And when you get a client that fits that particular vertical, you can open it up and go, okay, what can I show them? And it's a really lovely way to start your conversation with a client because it shows that you know what you're talking about. It gives them things to look at. It's exciting, it's fun, it's interactive. It gives you information about what's in their head, even when they don't know what's in their head. And it just fast circuits the whole creative process dramatically. One of the questions that came through from Lee was she uses all these sort of online holding tools, if you like, or storage devices, but she can't communicate why she likes something, her reasoning behind it. And that's true, because once you file something in 3 months, you go back to it and think, what did I like about that? The way you could do that is actually just use a voicemail and record it. Like a little note to yourself saying, the reason I like this is because the headline uses these particular words, or I like it because it's the boldness, or it's the tone, or it's the length, or whatever it is. And you just record a little and then send that to yourself. And then you file that along with the image, either a screenshot or whatever it is that you're using. And therefore you've got that memory and that history as to why that thing really sparked your interest. So there you have it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Create a swipe file. It is truly the one thing I wish I'd known when I started, and I should have used it more effectively throughout. But now with all the online sources and screenshots and all these different ways in which we can record and keep things historically, it's just such an easy win in terms of getting the client to understand what you want to do for them and getting inside their head so that you get your copy approved more quickly. Okay, that's it from me. All the best. Have a good day.